When we bought the old farmhouse, I thought we had found our dream home. It was quiet, isolated, the kind of place where I imagined us starting a family. Sure, the paint was peeling, the windows sagged a little, but I called it charming. Daniel called it affordable. At first it was peaceful. The creaks of the floorboards felt like the house was stretching after a long sleep. I told myself it was full of character. But within days, I started to notice things I couldn't ignore. It began at night. I'd hear scratching inside the bedroom walls. Not quick like mice. No. Slower, heavier. Almost deliberate. I remember holding my breath in the dark, listening, and when I walked into the room, it stopped. Like whatever was there knew I was listening back. Then came the smell. God, that smell. At first, it was faint like wet dirt, but it grew stronger, sour, rotten. Some nights it was so thick, I swore it clung to my clothes, my hair, even my skin. Daniel kept saying it was probably just a dead raccoon under the porch. But when the stench filled the hallway upstairs, he finally agreed to check. He cut into the wall of the guest room. I remember holding a flashlight, trying not to gag from the smell. And then I saw it, a bird, or what was left of it. Its tiny body, dried and twisted, wrapped tightly in layers of old cloth. Not something that got trapped, something placed there. I whispered, "Why would anyone put that inside a wall?" Daniel didn't answer. He just tossed it out like garbage and sealed the hole. But the smell didn't leave, and neither did the scratching. I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I went to the local library, searching through old records about the house. And what I found made my skin crawl. The farmhouse had belonged to a family in the early 1900s, a family whispered about in town, because they practiced strange folk rituals, superstitions meant to protect their home, one of their customs, sealing dead animals into the walls. Birds, rats, even cats, they believed it would guard the house from evil. When I told Daniel, my voice was shaking. These animals, they weren't trapped. They were put there on purpose. He tried to laugh, but his eyes betrayed him. He didn't believe his own words anymore. That night, the scratching returned. Louder, moving inside the walls. It wasn't mice. It was something heavy, something alive. And then came the knocking. 3 sharp, deliberate knocks. I froze. Daniel sat straight up in bed, his face pale in the dark. The smell hit us again stronger than ever. I thought I was going to choke. We didn't sleep that night, and by morning, we decided to cut into more walls. The moment Daniel pulled back the plaster in the hallway, I knew it wasn't just one bird. Inside the walls were bundles, dead birds, rats, and the tiny skull of what looked like a cat. Each carefully wrapped, each carefully placed, arranged in patterns. My stomach dropped. I whispered, "This house is full of them." And I was right, because there were dozens more, still hidden, still waiting. And with every bundle we found, the air grew heavier. The walls seemed to close in tighter. The house, it felt like it was waking up. After we found the bundles in the hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching us. Every corner seemed heavier. Every shadow seemed darker. Even Daniel, who had always been the skeptic, avoided looking at the walls. We sealed the holes back up, but the smell never left. It only spread. By the second week, it drifted into the kitchen, into the living room, into the clothes hanging in our closets. No matter how many candles I lit, the rot clung to everything. And the noises, they grew bolder. The scratching that once hid when I entered the room now continued, sometimes crawling, sometimes pounding, sometimes sounding like claws dragging across wood. At night, I would lie awake, and swear I heard breathing. Slow, heavy, muffled, as though it came from deep inside the walls. One evening, I was doing dishes when I heard it again, not scratching this time, whispering. I froze, the water running over my hands. It was faint, like someone murmuring through layers of wood and plaster. I leaned closer to the wall above the sink, straining to hear, and then it stopped. Just silence. But I swear, my own name echoed back. Daniel thought I was imagining it. He tried to stay strong, but I saw the way he twitched at every sound, the way he sniffed the air like he couldn't escape it either. Finally, he said we should rip more walls open, get rid of whatever was left. So we did. We started in the living room. Behind one section, Daniel pulled out a bundle wrapped in black cloth. It was heavier than the others. When it tore open, I saw a small skeleton inside its jaw stretched wide, like it had died mid-scream. I staggered back, my chest tight. Daniel whispered, "What the hell is happening in this house?" We found more. Every wall we opened had them neatly hidden, sealed away. Birds, rodents, tiny skulls, some wrapped in cloth, some nailed to the beams, some painted with strange symbols I didn't recognize. I realized we were tearing apart more than a house. We were tearing apart some kind of ritual. That night, things escalated. Daniel and I barely spoke. We sat in silence, too drained to argue, too afraid to acknowledge what we were uncovering. But as soon as we tried to sleep, the house came alive. Scratches along the hallway, knocks on the ceiling, a deep thud beneath the floorboards. The sounds surrounded us, circling like something trapped inside the walls was trying to find a way out. I buried my face in the pillow, whispering, "Please stop, please stop." But the noises only grew louder. And then, for the first time, we saw it. The wall by the bedroom door began to bulge, just slightly, like something inside was pushing outward. The drywall cracked, flakes of paint falling to the floor. Daniel grabbed my arm, pulling me back, whispering, "Don't go near it." We stared, waiting for something to break through. But just as quickly as it swelled, the wall went still again, silent as though nothing had happened. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat upright in bed, staring at the walls, afraid to blink, because every time I closed my eyes, I pictured something crawling through the framework. Something alive, something that had been sealed in there, waiting. The next morning, Daniel said the words I'd been too afraid to say out loud. "We need to leave this house." But it was already too late, because the smell, the sounds, the presence, it wasn't just in the walls anymore. It was in us. After Daniel said we should leave, I wanted to believe it was that simple. Pack our bags, walk away. Pretend we never found this place. But the house wouldn't let us. Every night, the noises came back. The scratching, the knocking, sometimes even pounding, shaking the walls like something desperate wanted out. And the smell, it wasn't just in the walls anymore. It clung to my skin, seeped into my hair. I scrubbed myself raw in the shower, but I could still taste rot in the back of my throat. That's when the dreams began. Dreams of animals sewn into cloth, their eyes open, their jaws frozen in screams. I'd wake in the middle of the night, certain I heard wings beating inside the walls. But it didn't stop when I was awake. One afternoon, I was alone in the kitchen when I heard my name again. Claire. So soft, so faint, coming from inside the wall by the sink. I froze, holding my breath. I whispered back, "What do you want?" The wall groaned, and then silence. Daniel thought I was losing my mind, but I could see it in his eyes. He heard things too. He just didn't want to admit it. One night, he stormed out of bed, grabbed a hammer, and started smashing holes in the walls. Plaster rained down, dust filled the air. He tore through one section, then another, yelling, "Where are they? Where are they?" I begged him to stop, but when he turned, his face was pale, his eyes wide. Inside the wall, he had uncovered another bundle. But this one was different. It wasn't a bird, it wasn't a rat. It was a hand. A small, withered hand, the bone still intact, bound in faded fabric. Like the others, it had been carefully placed there. I screamed. Daniel dropped the hammer, stumbling back. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about animals. Whatever rituals had been performed here, they had crossed into something else. From that night on, the house began to play with us. Doors slammed on their own. Cold drafts swept through rooms, even when the windows were shut tight. And the whispers, they never stopped. Sometimes I'd hear my name. Other times, it was Daniel's. And sometimes, I heard voices I didn't recognize. I started seeing things too. Shadows moving in the corners of my eyes. The outline of figures standing in the hallway when no one was there. Once, while brushing my teeth, I swore I saw a face staring back at me from behind the bathroom wall. I screamed, dropping the toothbrush. But when Daniel rushed in, there was nothing. Just a crack in the plaster, like something had pressed its face against it, and vanished. By now, Daniel barely spoke to me. He spent hours in the basement, pacing, muttering. When I asked what he was doing, he just said, "We have to understand it. We have to finish what they started." That's when I realized the house wasn't just tormenting us. It was changing us, twisting us, feeding on us. I didn't recognize Daniel anymore. And when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The house wanted something, and I was terrified we were getting closer to finding out what. He wasn't my husband anymore. The thing wearing his skin spent its days tearing at the walls, hunting for relics of rot and bone. He'd arranged them on the basement floor in a sick, unholy geometry. He wasn't trying to fix it. He was trying to finish it. That night, the house began to breathe. I watched the hallway wall pulse, a grotesque lung made of plaster and decay. Then the fingers pushed through. Long, skeletal, and searching. Daniel didn't scream. He celebrated. "It's here," he cried, as the walls shattered and the stench of an open grave filled the air. And then, silence. A heavy, listening silence. The next morning, his eyes were empty voids. "It's free," he whispered, but it didn't leave. "It's in the house." I didn't run from the house. I ran from his eyes, from the thing that was looking out of them. I found an apartment on the 10th floor. Concrete walls, new paint, safe. I told myself it was over. I told myself I was free. But last night, a sound, a faint scratching. Was it a mouse? The building settling. I tried to ignore it, but the sound grew. A slow, deliberate dragging from inside the wall beside my bed. My heart hammered against my ribs. It knows I'm here. Then came the smell. Rot and damp earth. It's not in my head. It's in my room. My eyes darted to the wall, searching in the dark. It wasn't a crack. It was a seam. A thin, dark line being unstitched from the inside. The scratching stopped. The air grew cold. And from the darkness of that seam, a whisper coiled around me. A sound of dry leaves and decay. My name, it whispered my name. Claire.